everyone, and welcome back to Box Homeschool. I received a lot of questions in the question box, specifically on homeschooling teens, and I went through them and wanted to answer as many as I could. I also asked my daughter, who's 15 right now, to give her input on some of these questions that I thought would be really helpful to homeschool moms, especially because there aren't too many online sharing about their experience. So let's get right into it. I'm just checking through the Instagram questions. There's quite a few, as you can see. I'm just going to tackle the tween, teen, high school, middle school related questions for this video. The first one is how to handle teen girl attitudes and grumpiness. And I actually asked my daughter for help on this one, and I'll just give you my 2 cents after that. She said, what would help her handle her attitude? So she gave me a small list of things that would help her with her attitude. And the first one is eating healthy food. She's a dancer. She does ballet, jazz, hip hop, and she has been dancing for years. And I think somewhere starting in middle school, she started realizing how what she ate affected her performance, her energy levels, her ability to focus. She just became more aware and conscious of what she eats and how that affects her. And we also did a nutrition study, which I can link down below. I have a video of a walkthrough of the curriculum, but we did a whole nutrition study, and I think that also helped bring a focus to how much what we eat affects us, our moods, and our abilities. So she is pretty mindful of what she eats for each meal. So she'll make her own breakfast, she'll make sure she gets plenty of protein, and for her lunch, she wants to make sure she gets vegetables. She also noticed that during holidays and special occasions, when there are a lot more treats and sugary things available, how much that affects her moods. She'll sometimes get stomach aches, or she'll sometimes just feel really lethargic and just doesn't like that with the way that makes her feel. So she feels like what she takes in food-wise is a really big factor in her attitude. Another thing she said was getting activity, so physical activity. During this last winter break, she had a lot less activity. The studio was closed, but she noticed on the days that she worked out, she felt a lot better, and we noticed a big mood change in her. So I think just having physical activity, releasing those endorphins, really affects her mood on a daily basis, and that's really good for me to keep in mind, because in high school, with all the online courses and workload, it's really easy to just get stuck sitting at a computer with your books. And while she feels better because she's checking things off her list and she's productive in that way, she's also sedentary for a long time. So we need to keep that in mind. It's helpful for me to know that. I was actually surprised she recognized that physical activity is really important for her and her mood. Another thing she mentioned is having a good balance between family time and friend time. She is aware of how much she's influenced by others, especially at this age, and she felt like if she spends too much time with friends or too much time with family, where it's off balance, not that it has to be equal, but more with the idea that whoever you spend the majority of your time with is where the influence is going to be strongest. If she spends so much time with friends and not so much with family, then she starts to pick up habits. She notices she'll pick up just random habits from her friends that are not all bad at all, but just that it does happen. It just kind of assimilate to your surroundings. She also mentioned protecting her time. So whatever I can do to protect her time, meaning being reasonable with what I expect of her for morning time or family studies. Also, how many chores she's assigned for the day, if she has other responsibilities like making a meal for the family, anything like that, just that it's within reason and with kind of a compassion for her schedule that week. So if I know Wednesday and Thursday are going to be extra heavy for her with schoolwork, that I'm aware of that and sensitive to that with additional responsibilities that I place on her. So that has been helpful, is just being very in tune with her schedule and planning accordingly. Oh, I did ask her if it helps to have like random fun, spontaneous things that happen. So sometimes it'll be like, it's not often, but we did have a random, like, we're gonna do a Disneyland day, and that was kind of a surprise. Or I got her a special boba drink. Those kind of things, I was like, oh, does that help your attitude? Because I like to sprinkle in some fun once in a while. Especially as I got older, I thought, that's fun mom, right? I asked her about that in regards to the attitude thing, and she said she likes those things, she appreciates it, but with respect to her time. So if it is like a Disneyland day, as enjoyable and exciting as that is, she would appreciate it more knowing ahead of time so she can plan ahead for that versus like a spontaneous, put the books away, we're gonna go to Disneyland. That as an adult makes sense to me, I would want notice too, so I can feel good about going to that event, preparing in advance, getting my work done ahead of time, and then enjoying that day with the family. So that was good to know. I didn't realize that, because sometimes I do kind of like throw a surprise at her expecting a positive response, but sometimes it's met with like, what? And then we're both kind of like, what? And then I'm left like, well, this is supposed to be a good thing. So that was really helpful to hear. What I have been doing is protecting her time. I have been doing that by being careful of what I schedule for our morning meetings. I knew going into it based on last year, we really need to keep that down to the basics. I have to be very careful about what I choose to do during that time. She doesn't want read alouds that are too babyish or too young, and it's fine because my 10-year-old is at a higher reading and comprehension level, so it works out okay for us in that sense. I have been making sure she gets enough sleep, and it's interesting because I feel like I stayed up so much later than she did in high school studying because I had to with extracurricular activities. I would get home and then have to start studying pretty late. So I did let her know she's able to stay up later because she gets plenty of sleep as a homeschooler. Another thing that I like to do is kind of be proactive in that we will read books together one-on-one. I've talked about this before, but we always have a book that we're reading together. I try to do it 3 days a week, but sometimes it's 2 days a week where we will just read one chapter together. The current one is, we're almost done, but here. How Teens Win by John Acuff. So it's written actually by his 2 daughters, and it's the student's guide to accomplishing big goals. So there's a bookmark, where is it? Right here. So we're almost done with this one, but we always have a book going together, and to me that's just kind of being proactive, having a point of discussion. I find reading books together is a really safe way to open up discussion for different topics, and that has been really helpful. I can always refer back to some of the things we read when it comes to play in real life. Another thing for attitudes is I try to stay stable, and that's not always easy. For example, if my son or my daughter are more emotional or having big feelings, I'll try my best to stay stable. 1, I think that's what they need, and 2, I think it helps to build trust and set an example of how I want to have discussions and not be reactive and overly emotional. I want to be able to have conversations and be logical in the way that we have discussions and keep things like in reality. That has helped because with all the things going on in a teenager's body and mind developmentally, I think they need a solid, grounded parent who will stay mature and help them to calm down and cope with what they're going through. And lastly, this is something really hard, but if you see like attitude on their face or in their responses, sometimes it's nonverbal, and the nonverbal actually is the hardest part for me. And they don't always even know that it's showing on their face or their body language, how they're like playing with something on their clothes, and those things really eat at me, but it's not personal, and it could easily feel personal, and if you see it through that perspective, it can easily be that way and turn worse. I've realized that it's not personal. It's very much reflective of what they're going through and kind of the exaggerated way that they're thinking of the problem. So the more that I can surrender those things and let it go and almost like ignore it in the moment, then I find that the conversation goes a lot smoother. I will sometimes bring it up later when they're calm, and I find that that is the most helpful time. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes in the moment when you see a face, you have to call it out. I've learned those conversations pretty consistently do not go very well. Okay, next question. Guilt over outsourcing for high school. I can see that. I think if you've been homeschooling for a long time, you've probably been doing so much. You've been helping them learn to read and write and solve math problems and explaining so many different teaching concepts that it is a weird transition to kind of hand off things. But the way I see it is I'm not the best person to teach a certain topic. I'm not the best person to teach chemistry. I know that for sure, but I want to give the best to my kids. Nowadays, there's so many great resources available for using and teaching at home or outsourcing, and also tons of reviews online that you can check and like see, is this what I want, or samples that you can reference. So I don't feel guilt. I guess I do feel at times a wish, like I do wish that I could could teach whatever subject, but realistically, I know I'm not the best person to do that job. And if someone can do it better, if I have access to that, I can afford it, or maybe it's a dual enrollment and they can get a college credit for that as well. I feel like I want to do what's best for my student, and I feel outsourcing is not something to feel guilty about, but something to feel proud of. Like, I found that for you. And what I'm noticing now that she's doing a lot of outsourcing for core subjects is that my job is shifting for high school. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of legwork. Like, for example, if she's doing dual enrollment, I have to make sure the dual enrollment course for whatever schools that she's considering for college is that the right course that matches up with their requirements. So there's a lot of looking at different community college courses she's interested in taking and fulfilling, and making sure all that fulfills high school and for college. Finding the professor that teaches that course, researching that professor and reading the reviews on that professor to see like what other students have experienced with him. And then, if it's bad, I have to go back to the drawing board. So I feel like that's kind of my job right now with her. There's a lot of time that I spend doing that right now for her. Each semester is different. So some courses are a full year long and other courses are just a semester. So then I'm like doing that again to research for the next semester. All that legwork I feel proud of, especially when it's a course she is really happy with and enjoys. So I don't feel guilty. I feel actually kind of proud. Like, I did that. How long is your typical day? What does a schedule look like? Every day is really different. And I'm talking just about my high school daughter for this one. She has classes Monday through Thursday. They're an hour to an hour and a half each. Those classes are all live classes. So she attends those lives. There's a time she needs to log in for those. I try to plan all of those so that we do have an hour in the morning to spend together as a family. And she has some time to do some things before her first class starts. So everything is, I think, 9 a.m. and on. And she'll be done with those by 12 at the latest. Then from there, she'll start to work on what she needs to do for those courses. And typically she leaves around 3-ish for her after school activities. So she has about 3 hours there to complete work, to study. Sometimes that's all she does. She'll bring a book or something to her activity if there's any kind of break. And it wasn't until more recently this year that some nights she'll come home and continue working for maybe another hour. But that's pretty much it. I would say if she has Friday, Saturday, Sunday, any free time, I do see her start working on something for school and trying to get ahead or studying for a test the next week. But that's pretty much like her normal schedule. It's not too crazy, but I feel like she does fill in each of the blank times with something for school. She doesn't have as much time to just do fun things. So she used to be very into watercolor, and it's been months, I think, since she's pulled out watercolors. So things like that have kind of fallen a little bit, but she did pick up other hobbies like guitar and learning how to play worship songs. So it's not like she has no free time, but her weekdays are pretty full. How do you handle the social aspect of homeschooling teens? So it's not perfect, but I do think it's really important for all ages, but especially for the middle school and high school years. We have been part of like a family life group for over a decade. It's like 5 to 7 families, and we meet every week. So our kids have grown up with those kids for years, and that's been a really big blessing. We are also connected to our church family that is lovely. They have a really strong youth program, and I know the leaders personally and just adore them. So we've made an effort to have our kids stay connected to the youth group and have community within that. Our youth group has them split into gender-specific small groups as well, and they are able to discuss what the sermon was about, but also what's going on in their lives. And some of the families will take initiative and try to get the boys together, the girls together. So they have their own like outside of church activities that they do together that are just planned within the group. That's been really nice. My daughter's small group like has their own text chain, and they keep each other updated with prayer requests and also plan hangouts together. My daughter went to a football game at a high school, and also a cookie sharing, I don't know what you call it, like a cookie exchange party. The other way I found works really well for community is having them part of some kind of after school activity, but something that is consistent so they meet regularly. We decided to put our kids on a dance team. We opted to join teams for all my kids. So my son is part of a team and a crew. My daughters are part of a couple teams. So in that sense, they're practicing for shows and competitions. By the nature of that kind of a team, they're spending so much time together. They have the consistency of seeing the same friends many times a week, going through some hardships together in terms of like competitions. There's sickness and injuries and props and things that they all need to kind of work together with. A lot of memories made there, and that has been really helpful to us. I think the consistency of it and just finding the right community, finding the right kind of group to join, and then having consistency with them. We've been part of that for a few years now, and it's great to be at the point where we will hang out outside of just the activity. Okay, do any of them ask to go to school at any point? So only one of my kids has asked to go to school. It's actually my oldest. I asked her if I can share this story. She's like, okay, sure. She's embarrassed. It was sometime in middle school. She was invited to a birthday hangout with a group of friends, and they hung out for hours. And when she got home, my daughter was telling me about all the conversations that they had. And a lot of it I realized centered around boys, who likes who and who is interested in who. And she didn't know any of these people because they're all like from individual schools. But I could tell there was an excitement in her voice. And I don't think she had been around that kind of discussion, at least for that prolonged period of time. That I think influenced her in the moment. So knowing that I was just curious where this was going. And so she's talking all about, boys. And then she said, it was actually cute, but she's like, I think I'd be interested to see what public school is like. Because we had the whole rundown of the conversations that had happened about boys. It was just funny to see that led to her being curious about public school. So it didn't feel like a serious request or something that I really needed to take to heart, but I did want to allow space for that discussion. So we did have a talk about it and just kind of broke down like, what do you think led you to this conclusion, or what do you think led to this interest? But in the end, it was about the hangout that she had and the topics that they talked about. So I told her I wanted to paint a realistic picture of what that would look like and what changes would have to take place if that were to happen. And would that be worth this curiosity she had? Things that would change, like you would be starting school at this time every day. You would be ending school at this time every day. There's no flexibility in that. We would have to pull back from the extracurricular activities, because one of the biggest perks of homeschooling is being able to have that family time, influence of parents over peers. But if she was gone at school all day, it wouldn't make sense for us to just pick her up from school and drive her to an after school activity for hours, come home and just get ready for the next day. That would not be okay for us. So that would be a change. Just, I think painting the picture of reality really helped to bring her back down to earth. I get it. It's a season of girls seeing boys in a different way, boys seeing girls in a different way. But at the end of the conversation, I'm thankful she didn't think it was worth sacrificing so many things she really loves and values with a homeschooling life. And that was the only time. And I brought it up with her because I said, oh, someone asked, did any of my kids ask to go to school at any point? And she was like, oh, like she's embarrassed. I'm like, can I share that story or no, I don't have to? And she's like, no, that's fine. I think because she's older and has never mentioned that again. So shared with permission, but hopefully that was helpful in some way. Do you worry you will miss out on all the normal high school experiences like prom? I asked her about this one as well. I didn't go to prom. My husband went to prom. I didn't go. I had no desire. I wasn't against it, but I didn't care. I think I was so involved in after school activities that kept me busy. So I wasn't really like attached to my school. Same for college. I didn't feel like I really got, college sports, or I didn't really feel that attachment or emotional attachment to any of my schools. I always had something going on outside of school, whether after school activity or a job, that kind of balanced me out. So I didn't really feel too attached. My daughter has a lot of close friends who are in public and private school and hears a lot about dances and high school drama at schools. So her opinion about that is she would want to go. I know a lot of friends ask friends to go to dances, and if a friend asked her to a dance, she would be open to that for sure, but she's not in need to go to a school dance. She's very much involved in dance. One of the competitions had a prom where they got all dressed up. Her dance team got all dressed up and went, and she said, it's not what I expected. It's a lot of people didn't dance. A lot of people stood around and don't know what to do. It's funny, it's a room full of dancers, really good dancers, but just kind of hang out with their friends. And so they ended up leaving that room and going to another room to just hang out in a quieter area. So she said, I kind of know what it's like, and it's not something that I feel like it's a need. But I get it as a parent, if you have had a really good experience with the normal high school things like prom, I could see that there would be like a hope and a wish for your child to do that. There are homeschool groups. There's one in our area that offers things like that. So if you're part of their private school group, then it's still a homeschooling group, but they're like filed together as a private school. They have things like that, like field trips and high school dances and talent shows and science fairs, which I think is great. We were part of that for many years in elementary school until we switched over to a charter school. So that's where we are on the prom thing. I think it was a bigger concern for me when I was just first starting homeschooling. I think I was just concerned because I didn't know what it would look like at all. And now that we're here, I see all the community they have and I see what they are prioritizing and just what else there is in life. You know, I think prom and those kind of things just kind of shrink in importance. But it's not something you have to sacrifice if it is important to you. I have a friend who made their own prom and they invited a bunch of friends. They had through a whole thing. And it was just a beautiful thing that they did for their kids. So you don't have to sacrifice that. Next question. Teens need to start to individuate from parents. How to foster that while homeschooling? Yes, I think it kind of started for us in middle school. So we would slowly transition certain subjects to be online. My son is in middle school. He's 13. He is doing a self-paced course for science and I still check his work once a week. But other than that, this is his first year doing science much more independently. He's also taking an online math course that is having him keep track of his own assignments, take quizzes, scan them, submit them himself. Those things are small but baby steps to start to take care of his own business. Also with planning, I've always helped fill out their homeschool planner. This is the first year where I'm filling out my own homeschool planner. I'm handing it to him and asking him to fill out his own planner. So he knows his color in my planner and he just goes to those green boxes and writes down what he needs to do in his own planner and we'll go through that. He has chores every day of the week, so he will jot those down in his planner too. I've seen a lot of growth in him through these little individual things. He is setting his own goals of memorizing scripture, memorizing the 10 Commandments. He has goals for working out and getting stronger. I'm really seeing like a change this season and I'm not sure if that's because I'm giving him more responsibilities. It does seem like that lights him up a bit. He seems very excited about these new freedoms, these new responsibilities that are empowering him to take ownership of his life, which is really cool to witness. And I don't know if I would be able to see that if I weren't homeschooling, just the time to be able to explain things, hand things off, and then see him light up. Okay, I'm just gonna do one more question for the sake of time and then answer the rest of these on another video. Thoughts on high school? What did you think it would be versus how it actually is? Okay, this is the other question I asked my daughter about. She said she did not expect her teachers to be so helpful. I think she thought teachers are gonna be just talking at you and hands off, but with her online courses, they have office hours. She's able to talk to them directly. Her chemistry, she really was dreading chemistry honors and she didn't want to take honors, but I'm like, I think you can do it because she did so well in bio honors. So she took the challenge. She was very much dreading it. First day of the course, her teacher explained how much she loves chemistry, but she knows that a lot of people don't and are afraid of it. And so she's going to teach to those students and she wants every student to see that chemistry is for everyone. Chemistry can be loved. You can change your opinion about it. That was kind of like the teacher's goal, is to change everyone's opinion about chemistry. So while my daughter still does not love chemistry, she has a much better opinion of it and she's very thankful to her teacher for that. She said the workload is more than she expected. She knew it was going to be more than 8th grade, but I think transitioning to high school, she was surprised at the big jump in expectation. She also said that there's a lot more discussion and group work than she expected. So with these online courses, the benefit is you can work in groups and have interaction with the students in the live class. They're assigned a lot of group projects and it's like a blessing and a curse, right? I think working with groups is hard, especially if your grade depends on it. And some people are really into it and some people don't carry their weight. That has been eye-opening to her, frustrating to her at times, just difficult, but also I think necessary. I feel like it's a good skill to have, an experience to have working with a group. You're always going to have to work with someone in some way, even with your family. And everyone's going to have a different opinion, a style of working, a style of communication. So I do see it as a blessing to be able to give her this experience in high school, even as a homeschooler. What I mentioned earlier about how I'm doing so much legwork to research teachers and courses and reading reviews, I personally didn't expect that that would be a big job for me. I didn't realize how much information is out there. It's helpful, but it's just a lot of work work to dig through. So that's something I didn't expect. Also did not expect to love it as much as I do. I did not realize that even though something is hard, like mentioned the attitudes, hormones, difficult conversations, I didn't know that you can love something that is so hard. I don't want to put a misconception like homeschooling high school, for me anyway, is so beautiful and lovely and easy, but I love it even though it's hard. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think being able to witness your child go through all the things and be able to be there for them, walk alongside them in some of their hardest seasons yet, be a stable force in their lives, a trusted person. Sometimes I feel like I'm convincing my teenagers, I'm for you, I'm on your team. That's okay, I don't mind reiterating those things, but it's a blessing. It's such a blessing to be able to have walked with them alongside them throughout this whole homeschool journey, being a big part of their lives, working through disagreements and conflicts is really hard and exhausting in the moment. But at the end of the day, I thank God for the opportunity that we have in this season to really shepherd our kids in a critical point in their lives where they need us the most. And they may not seem like it, but they need us the most at this time. But a hug, a look, a word of approval from mom or dad is so meaningful to your teenager, whether they show it or not. Hopefully they show it, but it is so soothing to them. It is so reassuring to them in a time where they need reassurance and groundedness and security in their lives. So there are a lot more questions that I received on Instagram, and I just want to say thank you so much for asking the questions. I think I'm surprised when I put up a question box on Instagram. I am humbly surprised with how many questions come in. Who am I? Really, who am I to answer any question? But I feel like I'm thankful to be able to share our experience, knowing that it could encourage you where you're at, because I know that hearing from some of my favorite homeschool moms who share online, like Abby from Rooted in Rest and Ashley from Grace and Grit, have spoken words from their own experience that have really helped to keep me going, helped just put one foot in front of the other and feel encouraged that I'm not alone. So the fact that I get questions is just really an encouragement to me, and I'm just really praying that my time here is beneficial to you. If you are homeschooling a tween or teen or like really close to those years, leave me a comment below or just share some encouragement of where you are at in your journey. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you guys in the next video.